Spring did not arrive all at once. It came in fragments, a thinner layer of frost on the windows, the sound of water moving beneath ice, the way the horses grew restless, as if they sensed change before it showed itself. Eli noticed first. "The creek sounds different," he said one morning, standing at the door with his boots half on. Caleb listened. He hadn't realized how long he'd stopped listening for change. "You're right," he said. Eli smiled, proud of the observation, and ran off toward the barn. Caleb watched him go, the boy's figure small against the wide land, but no longer fragile in the way he'd been when winter first took him in. That scared him, not because Eli was stronger now, but because strong things didn't always stay. The town visit came sooner than Caleb wanted. Mrs. Hart arrived at the ranch just after noon, her coat dusted with melting snow, her expression gentle but firm. She didn't come inside right away. She stood on the porch, looking out at the land, like she understood that stepping through the door meant stepping into something complicated. "He's doing well," she said finally. "Yes," Caleb replied, "he is. There are people asking about him." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Asking how?" "Concerned," she said carefully. "Curious. The kind of attention that doesn't fade." Eli hovered in the doorway, pretending not to listen, but missing nothing. Mrs. Hart lowered her voice. "There's a couple in town. No children. Good people. They'd like to meet him." Silence stretched between them. Caleb nodded once. "All right." Eli's breath caught. The meeting was set for Sunday. The days leading up to it felt heavier than winter ever had. Eli grew quieter, his questions more careful, his movements restrained, like someone trying not to take up space. Caleb noticed everything and said nothing, which might have been worse. On Saturday night, Eli sat at the table picking at his food. "If they like me," he said, not looking up, "you'll tell me to go, right?" Caleb set his fork down slowly. "I won't tell you anything you don't already know," he said. "That's not an answer." "No," Caleb admitted, "it isn't." Eli pushed his plate away. "I just don't want to be passed again." The words hit hard. "Eli," Caleb said, his voice rough, "you are not an object." Eli shrugged. "Feels like it sometimes." That night, Caleb didn't sleep. He walked the house instead, touching door frames, pausing by old photographs, standing in the room that used to be Thomas's. Dust covered everything, but the shapes remained. A bed too small for anyone now. A wooden horse missing a leg. He sat on the floor and stayed there until dawn. Sunday arrived pale and uncertain. The couple from town were kind, too kind. Their smiles were hopeful, their questions polite, their promises warm. They spoke of school, of stability, of a future that sounded safe and sensible. Eli answered when spoken to. He did not smile. Caleb watched, hands clenched in his coat pockets, feeling like an outsider in his own home. After they left, Eli went straight to the barn. Caleb found him there, sitting in the hay, back against the wall. "They're nice," Eli said flatly. "They are. So, that's it?" Caleb sat beside him. "Do you want to go?" Eli stared at the dirt. "I want to stay." The words landed heavy and bright and terrifying. Caleb closed his eyes. Staying meant responsibility. Staying meant risk. Staying meant opening himself to the kind of loss he had sworn never to touch. "Again, I'm not good at this," Caleb said quietly. "At being what people need," Eli nodded. "Me neither." The honesty cracked something open. "I don't have much," Caleb continued. "This land. It's quiet. It can be lonely." "I like the quiet," Eli said. "It lets me think." Caleb looked at him then, really looked. Not as a child passing through, not as a responsibility deferred, but as a person choosing. "Staying isn't easy," Caleb said. "Neither is leaving." That was it. The decision didn't feel triumphant or dramatic. It felt like stepping into cold water, shocking at first, then steady. Caleb went to town the next day. Mrs. Hart listened as he spoke, her expression unreadable. "You understand what this means," she said when he finished. "Yes. And if it doesn't work?" Caleb swallowed. "Then we'll learn." Paperwork followed, questions, raised eyebrows. When Caleb and Eli left the schoolhouse together, the sun was breaking through the clouds, lights spilling across the street like approval they hadn't asked for. The ranch felt different when they returned, not warmer, not brighter, fuller. Eli began to change the space, not intentionally, just by existing. His boots by the door, his laughter echoing down the hall, his presence settling into the cracks like something the house had been waiting for. One evening, Caleb showed him the old photographs. "That's my wife," he said, tapping the frame. "Anna." "She looks kind," Eli said. "She was." "And him?" Caleb hesitated. "My son, Thomas." Eli studied the picture. "He looks like he ran a lot." Caleb smiled, small and real. "He did." They sat quietly after that. "Does it still hurt?" Eli asked. "Yes," Caleb said. "Does it hurt less?" Caleb considered. "It hurts differently." Eli nodded, satisfied. Spring crept closer. Snow melted into mud, then into grass. The land breathed again. New sounds filled the air, birds, water, the creak of life moving forward. One morning, Caleb woke to the smell of burnt toast and laughter. Eli stood in the kitchen, grinning. "I tried." Caleb laughed, actually laughed, the sound surprising them both. They ate together, messy and imperfect, and when the sun rose higher, they stepped outside into a world no longer frozen. The ranch was still scarred, still quiet in places, but it was no longer empty, and for the first time since winter had taken everything from him, Caleb Rowe felt something close to peace, not the absence of pain, but the presence of meaning. Spring arrived, the way it always did on the plains, quietly, without asking anyone if they were ready. The snow didn't disappear all at once. It thinned first, retreating from fence posts and roof edges, leaving behind dark earth and the promise of green. Water ran freely again through the creek, clear and fast, carrying away what winter no longer needed. Caleb watched it from the porch, while Eli skipped stones across the surface. They had fallen into a rhythm that felt less like learning and more like remembering. Morning started early. Work was shared. Silence was no longer heavy. It was companionable, the kind that didn't demand to be filled. Eli grew taller, stronger, more certain. He laughed easily now, the sound no longer sharp with fear, but rounded with comfort. He spoke of school in town, of books he liked, of things he wanted to build with his hands. Caleb listened. He always listened. One afternoon, a truck pulled into the yard, unfamiliar, clean. Caleb tensed out of habit, then forced himself to breathe. Mrs. Hart stepped out, smiling. "I thought I'd check in," she said. Eli ran to greet her, proud to show off the new fence post he'd helped fix. The mare he could now brush without being told. Mrs. Hart watched it all with quiet approval. "You've done well," she said to Caleb. "We're doing our best," he replied. She handed Eli a small bundle, books neatly wrapped. "For school," she said. "You start next week." Eli's eyes lit up. That night, Caleb stood in the doorway of the room that used to belong to Thomas. The bed had been fixed, the dust cleared, new blankets folded neatly at the foot. It wasn't a replacement. It never would be. But it was a continuation. Caleb sat on the edge of the bed and let himself feel it. The grief that never fully left. The love that had returned in a different shape. Eli appeared in the doorway. "Is it okay if I sleep here now?" Caleb nodded. "It's always been yours if you wanted it." Eli smiled and crawled into bed, content. The first day of school came with nerves and excitement. Caleb walked Eli to town, the road no longer swallowed by snow, but lined with new grass pushing, stubbornly through the soil. At the schoolhouse, Eli hesitated. Caleb knelt beside him. "You don't have to be brave," he said. "You just have to be you." Eli nodded and stepped inside. Caleb waited. When Eli came out at the end of the day, his smile was wide and unguarded. "They asked me to read out loud," he said. "I did." "I knew you would," Caleb replied. Summer followed, slow and warm. The ranch breathed easier. The land responded to care, as if it had been waiting for hands that believed in the future again. One evening, Caleb found Eli sitting on the fence, watching the sunset paint the sky in soft oranges and golds. "Do you think the snow remembers us?" Eli asked. Caleb thought of the footprints that had vanished, the storms that had passed, the silence that once ruled the land. "I think it remembers that we kept going," he said. Eli leaned against him. "I'm glad you found me." Caleb's throat tightened. "I'm glad you stayed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the ranch settled into itself, not as a place defined by loss, but by resilience. Winter would return one day. It always did. But now, when it came, it would find a house with lights in the windows, laughter in the rooms, and two people who knew how to survive it together. The land no longer felt forgotten. Neither did they.